Welcome to Leadership Pathway. I'm Dave Miller, the co-founder of Leadership Pathway. And if you've ever asked a 6-year-old, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm sure they said, I want to be a co-founder. No, of course they didn't. They wanted to be an astronaut or the president. But here we are. It's where the pathway has taken me. I'm thrilled to have you along listening today. My guest is Tony Miltenberger. Did I get that right?
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Nailed
Well
it.
done.
That's what private education will get you. I can read. That's so good. Tony, welcome to Leadership Pathway.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. I've already enjoyed just getting to know your story a little bit, and our chit chat beforehand. It's good. It's good, man. I'm excited.
Listen, I like making friends. So I think that's what I can already feel it. That's what today's going to be.
It's a vibe for sure.
You're a podcast host, you're a coach, you're an executive coach, you're a speaker, you're all of these things. Our mutual friends, Dylan Smith, said to me, he listed it all off, everything you're doing. He goes, but more than that, man, he's a pastor.
Mm.
He's a he's a disciple maker pastor in Centerville. Is that right?
Centerville, warm and cheerful Centerville.
Yeah. Tell me about your church.
I am the associate pastor of disciple making at Centerville Grace. It's a church of about 300-ish people that
Yeah.
call it their church home.
Yeah.
And man, we make disciple makers. So we just have a heart for what it means to make disciples who can make disciples. And we
Yeah.
just believe that good disciple making looks like a prism, PRISM,
Okay.
prism. It needs to be personal, it needs to be reproducible, intentional, sacrificial, and missional.
What do you think? What do you think is, I mean, if you got 10 people in the room and they were all pastors of some churches will call it the pastor of groups
Yep.
or the pastor of growth or the disciple, whatever. And then they'll all have an idea, right? They all have
Yep.
an idea. They all have a thing. What's missing in the church today? It's really hard. I've always been on the other end. I'm on the
Sure.
weekend, the guys jacking up the weekend attendance and then baptizing 100 people and handing them to
Yeah.
you, and you're like, oh my goodness, what do you think's missing? Do you think something's missing? I think if you got spiritual
Oh.
formation, they'd be like, yeah, we're not making disciples in this country. What do you what do you think's missing in all of that equation?
So this is what I would say is that we have worked really hard to scale something that isn't programmable. Right. So you're not going to program your way to making disciples. And part of this is now, forgive me if I rant here. Okay. So
No, please.
just
That's why I knew you would. If you're
okay. Thank you.
anybody doing this will have a rant. I believe. I do believe, and you
I,
should.
so here's the deal, right? Is that what we've done is we've tried to program our way to something that was meant to be intentional, relational, and reproducible. And so program based disciple making is much different than tool based disciple making. And tool based disciple making, I walk alongside you for however long it takes based off of who you are as a person. I give you a set of tools and then I send you off to build your own house.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be good with some tools, and I'm going to be good with other tools because you might be a little bit more intentional. I might be a little bit more relational.
Hmm.
But either way, we're each going to build
Hmm.
our own version of the same house, which is modeled after the house that Jesus built. And so I'm not trying to make disciples of Tony. I'm trying to make
Yeah.
disciples of Jesus. And so I'm going to give you every tool that I have as I have followed Jesus. And I want you to pick whichever tool works the best for you. And I want you to give that tool away to someone else
Yeah.
and then give your toolbox away. Right. And so what happens is that we're trying to create a pathway, which I do think is important, but we're trying to do it at such a large scale
Yeah.
so that we get out of the nitty gritty of having to deal with people's sins and temptations and personalities. When the reality is that the only way that we get to transformation is by actually dealing with all of those messy parts of humanity so that maybe in that messy part of humanity, we might look a little bit more like Jesus.
Listen, man. One of the worst years of my life was leading a small group.
Hmm.
That was 2002, and I just led one again this past year. Bunch of guys. I'm like, let's lead a guys group, and I was remembering my early 20s, and these guys I still talk to this day, and that's been 3 decades plus.
Mm.
the guy that Wednesday morning pancakes, Danville, Kentucky,
Love it.
and there were about 8 guys, and he was a football coach. He's still coaching football, D3, right there in Danville at center. Andy Fry was his name, and we spent 2.5 years in Romans. I don't know, just picking it apart, confessing sin, praying for each other, just what you're talking
Mm,
about. And a lot of us in our early 20s, whether it's in college or we have those experiences, right?
yeah,
And then we get out into the big world where small group is 7 to 8:30 at my house. And I go around the room, why'd you want to be here? I mean, it's strangers. And I didn't go to a big church. And we just moved. It wasn't a big church,
sure.
but big enough that people would click here, sign up, get assigned. There were 3 guys I wanted in the group. And then all these other. Now we made some great friends over that year.
That's right.
Was I discipling them?
No,
Not even,
not even close.
not even
Yeah.
close, man.
Yeah, that's part of the problem is we have a language problem,
Yeah,
right? So one of the things that I just really believe is that common language creates common movement. And because there are so many different parts to the church, we've all developed our own language. Like if you go back in time, and you probably remember this, is if you went to a Baptist church, the bus ministry was part of
sure.
discipleship.
Yeah,
And so one of the things that we talk about a lot is that, man, we've really got to define these terms. A disciple is like someone who's trying to follow Jesus and act like Jesus. Discipleship is teaching someone about Jesus. It's just straight up teaching. It's what we do on Sunday morning.
mm-hmm.
It's financial peace. It's all these different
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
And then disciple making is teaching someone how to teach someone to follow Jesus. And I would argue that you're not a mature disciple unless you've made a disciple who's made a disciple.
that's right.
So, or spiritual grandparenting, if you like that term
Mm-hmm.
better. But essentially, what we're talking about is reproduction.
Right.
We've managed to really program our way to having an entire generation of spiritual orphans.
Yeah,
And we saw it during COVID. 30% of the church didn't come back. Why?
right.
Because we didn't teach them how to follow
Right.
Jesus. We taught them how to come to church.
The unfair advantage of the first century, right? When you think they walked everywhere, the
Hmm.
government was after them. That's helpful, I think.
Helpful. Yep. Certainly, so what we see in China would certainly
Sure.
reiterate that point.
And when we talk about leadership development at Leadership Pathway, and leaders will say to me, "I want to develop leaders like Jesus, or I want to develop leaders like Paul." I'm like, well, they walked everywhere, man. Like if you and I were going to go hold a revival, and we were going to go to downtown Dayton. How far is that from? I mean,
It's 15 miles.
yeah, dude, I'll see you tomorrow. Like we start walking and we're going
Right.
to sit under a shade tree and have a Slurpee halfway there. I wouldn't need a therapist or a coach, or you and I, we would have it talked through by the time we got there. Their unfair advantage of that world is that, can we reproduce that today in how we live and what we do? It's hard.
It's hard, and just requires it requires a plan. It requires intentionality. It requires a sacrificial desire, right? Because you have to give up your own agenda to move at the speed.
Yep.
Like one of the things we talk about is that good disciple makers play offense and defense at the same time.
Yeah.
And so I have to show up with a plan to help move the ball forward. And also, I must be willing to sacrifice my plan if the Lord or you bring something up that needs to be dealt with now.
It's good.
And so, like, if I go in, like, hey, maybe today we're going to talk about what your quiet time or what
Yeah.
your intentional, you know, formation walk goes. But if your marriage is on the verge of floundering to death, then we're not going to talk about the Bible reading stuff. We're going to talk about your marriage stuff. Sometimes
Yeah.
character stuff comes first.
Yeah.
And that's why you can't have a timeline and it doesn't really scale and it doesn't really, like, you're not going to preach your way to making disciples either.
But the executive pastor wants it to launch September the 9th
Right.
and be done May 15th.
Right. Right. So
And I'll
I was
give
a
you
lead.
6 minutes. One weekend, I'll give you 6 minutes to
Right.
promote this so
Or
everybody can be in a group.
or even better, we're gonna let you preach on Labor Day when nobody's coming
Oh,
anyway.
yeah, nobody's coming.
It's like, yeah, hey, Labor Day and the Sunday after New Year's. Those are the 2 weeks.
I mean, I went to work at a church in Las Vegas, and I was 25, and it was run a couple thousand people. There were 20 groups.
Hmm.
And when I left 6 years later, it was running, I don't know, three times. They had more than doubled, and there
Sure.
were 20 groups. And there had been three or four. This is not funny, but it's funny with 30 years of history, right?
Sure.
There had been two or three, four disciple making growth pastors that had been hired, and they'd come in with great fanfare. And by the third one, we were like, the last two guys, they weren't here very long, and I felt bad for them because it was it was mega church seeker town,
Yeah.
not late 90s, and we were cranking on this thing and doing big call weekends, right? Whatever we called
Sure.
them in those days. I saw thousands of people get baptized.
Yeah.
Amazing things happen. But man, I always felt bad for we called them adult ministries. That's what it
Yep.
was. The adult ministry. I always
My
felt
first
bad for
job
them.
was the adult ministries coordinator. My first church job, right? And here's one of the things I just know to be true now is what you win them with is what you win them
Well,
to.
of course. And we were in Vegas,
Right.
man. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway. Listen,
Yeah.
you got a lot of jobs. You got a lot of jobs. You got a lot of things you're doing. What's the problem you're in love with?
The problem I'm in love with is helping people integrate their faith into everyday life.
Okay.
So, so I always say that like I actually have lots of titles of things that I do, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm just helping people transform their life so that
Okay.
they can walk closer to Jesus.
So your website it listed off it talked about burnouts. It talked about, oh, my chat GPT's talking to me. Stop. It talked about burnout. It talked about the reasons leaders quit too soon,
Mhm.
pain, discomfort. Normally, when people are talking about that kind of stuff, they have their own story. Nobody comes out of First Baptist Clean Church of Independent Fundamentalism straight from Sunday school and puts that on their website to speak into other people's lives. I also know you started, or at least you spent some time in the military, which I'm always interested in, even though that wasn't my path. But we're dealing with young leaders,
Yeah.
and what I love hearing is what was going on between the ages of 18 and 25.
Yeah, so I grew up in a home that had a lot of things going on in it. My parents got divorced when I was really young, and
Okay.
so they're both making different life choices. And my parents are
Where'd you grow
great.
up? Where was this?
This Southwest Ohio, Dayton.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I still live here, and I went to high school, and there were two things in high school that I were pretty good at.
Yeah.
One was youth ministry. I was really down on the Jesus stuff. I went to a Catholic church. We had a
Okay.
Catholic youth minister there who was the first person to ever really disciple me and kind of pour into me. And she taught me to wrestle with this question that every thought, action, and desire right now is either strengthening or weakening my relationship with Christ.
Wow.
I don't really remember anything else about that
Man.
experience, but that has like spurned into my brain forever. And I still wrestle with that. It's one of those like right now is either strengthening or weakening my relationship with Christ. And plus it was peer led. And so I had the
Mm,
opportunity to like give talks and
yeah.
lead retreats and do some of the things that I know that your leadership pathway is super passionate about.
Yeah.
It was so good. It was so good. And then the other thing I did was like Civil Air Patrol, which is like JROTC on steroids. And so you got to dress up in, uniforms and march around and do all this stuff. And so it was like those two things combined led me to like, hey, the Army might be a really good place for me.
Okay.
And then I learned that in the Army, you can be what's called a chaplain's assistant. So no education required.
Okay.
You can go in and immediately start doing ministry.
Wow.
The only problem is I met this girl
Yeah.
and I knew I was going to marry her. She's my high school sweetheart.
Okay.
Now she's was a year older than me, but just could not leave her alone. I
Mm,
was not going to leave her. She wanted to stay in Dayton, so I enlisted in the Army Reserves as a chaplain's assistant.
okay.
And 3 days after I left, after I graduated high school, I left for basic training,
Okay.
and it was kind of off to the races since then. And that whole experience was kind of like trying to figure out my calling and my
Mm-hmm.
identity and
Mm-hmm.
sorting through, who am I really, and dealing with a lot of my own demons in the process. And
Yeah.
so I, I got one of the unique things about being in the reserves and being a chaplain's assistant is that you're kind of like a plug and play utility infielder. So they can just put you in a lot of different units.
Yeah.
So in 2000, the sergeant major called me and he was like, "Hey, I was specialist at the time, E nothing basically, like, hey, Specialist Miltenberger, do you want to go to Kosovo?" And I was like, Kosovo, wow. Let me pray about it. Can I have 24 hours? And this is the chaplain course, so you can
Right.
say something like that. Most of the Army, you can't say that. It's either yes or no right now. But chaplain corps, you can say that. And they were like, sure, let us know in 24 hours. So I called them back the next day and I was like, Sergeant Major, I'm ready to go. And he's like, it's already gone. We gave it to somebody else. And I was devastated. He goes, but I have a slot to go to Germany if you want to go. And I was like, yes. And so from 2000 to 2001, I spent 6 months in
So
Germany.
how
And
old are you at this point?
I'm 20,
20. Okay.
and and I save up enough money to buy an engagement ring.
Okay. So you go
And
to
then
Germany.
that's when I was in Germany. I saved up that
Okay.
extra money there. Yep. And so I get back, and on September 9th of 2001, I proposed to my now wife. We've been married now almost 23 years.
So I'm picturing Saving Private Ryan or one of these movies where they bring in the guy and they're like, put pressure on it. And then some guy comes in and reads them he says the final prayer and takes the letter in his
It's a little,
jacket.
yeah,
Covering.
no. I mean, that's,
What were you doing? Give me like if I
yeah,
if we followed you around or if you showed
sure.
us pictures or a quick highlight. What's a normal day of a chaplaincy assistant in
So,
Germany?
chaplains and chaplains assistants in the Army are assigned to units.
Okay.
And so they become like little churches.
Okay.
And so we'll do a lot of morale care. We'll do a lot of like, hey, let's go out and visit the troops. Let's go talk to people.
Okay.
We'll do, depending on where you are and what the mission is, you obviously you need to do all the same training as everyone else in the unit. So spend a lot of time on the rifle range, spend a lot of time
Okay.
called bivouac or out in the field. And then in
Oh, I didn't
addition
know
to
that.
that,
I didn't know chaplains. I didn't realize that.
so chaplains don't carry weapons, but chaplains assistants carry weapons for them, right? So
Okay.
part of our training is bodyguardish,
Okay.
right? And so in the event that we undertook fire, my job is to make sure that my chaplain is secure and safe.
Okay.
And that's my primary responsibility in the event of incoming fire. Or at least it was when I was there back in, 20
Yeah.
years. Who knows what it's
Exactly. Who
changed
knows?
now, right? Like
You
that's if you're listening and you're in the Army and I offended
you're
you, I'm
like, that's not
sorry.
what we do at all, man. Sorry. It is in this podcast. So just keep listening. Um, so you come home with an engagement ring. You're 20,
Yeah. Well,
21.
I saved up all that money while I was deployed and then got engaged 9/9 of 2001. I turned 21 on 9/10 of 2001. And then 9/11 2001, I thought for sure I was going to war.
Oh, wow.
And that really sped up the whole process of us getting married.
Okay.
And then eventually in 2004, I did go to war. I went to Kuwait
I
and
saw
southern
that.
Iraq for a year. And that
Okay.
ministry was completely different than any other ministry. That was much more intensive, um, lean into kind of like how do we take care of people who have been under immense amount of stress?
Yeah.
How do we meet their religious needs? How do we meet them where they are, walk alongside them? How do we take care of the soldiers who are kind of in the staging area where we were?
Yeah.
And how do we do all this? Is that year we saw 150,000 troops pass through our doors.
Wow.
We were at this place called the APOD, which is the aerial port of debarkation, embarkation. It's like the revolving door. You have to come through here in order to go up to Iraq, and
Okay.
you have to go through here in order to go back home. And it was wild, and it was crazy, and it really
You're 25, 26 years old at this point.
20 24 25.
24, 25.
Yeah. So I was born
Talking
in
to 18, 19-year-olds typically. 20 year.
typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes more, sometimes older, sometimes younger.
Okay.
A lot of what my role was in that season of life, because there were so many people that wanted to see the chaplain, who is an officer and older and has a
Hmm.
higher degree education, what we would do is triage who
Yeah.
needed to be seen
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And so, like, so tell me a little bit about your story. What do you have
Right.
going on? And, we would lead Bible studies, and
Okay.
we had this great cigar ministry. We would sit out in a gazebo at night in the desert and smoke cigars with anybody who wanted to come. And this cigar shop in Chicago would just send us cigars by the case. It
Amazing.
was it was it was profound Jesus work that
Hmm.
I would have never known at the time,
Mm.
but it was such a gift. It was such a gift.
I mean, you're dealing with people. Well, it's like the worst. Is there anything worse? Natural disasters, I guess, like, or famine, but war, like you're, or maybe they think they're, the anxiety of where they're going to, maybe. Were you up against some of that? I'm
Oh,
assuming.
for sure. Yeah.
So,
Here's the hardest when I think about that year, that there were a couple of hard parts, lots of hard parts, but the hardest kind of in abstract was the way that the Army did it back then, and who knows what they do now. But they had three different bases that signified units going in to the theater of operations, and then they had three bases signified the for units coming out of the theater operations. So you want to keep the people going in with the people going in. You want to people with the people coming out with the people
mhm,
coming out. Right? The goal is not to mix them up.
yeah.
And when we were going in, we would do church services on Sunday morning. I would take around a Catholic priest or
Okay.
a rabbi or an imam or whoever.
Right.
And going into country, the church services were standing room only. Like people were like, Lord, protect me, guide me, lead
Right.
me, protect, all of the things. And the
Coming
church
out,
services coming out were empty.
there is no God. There's no way there's a God.
Yeah,
Is that why?
that's exactly why.
Yeah. That's a
And that's
wrestle, isn't it? That's a
it.
wrestle.
It was so hard to see so many God fearing people lose so much hope in the goodness of God.
And in terms of war, none of it's good, right?
None
It's
of it's good.
awful. It's awful. But compare that to some of the other things. Compare that to what's even just Gaza, right? Going on right now in Gaza. Or compare it to the Europe. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's unbelievable. How long did you stay in the military? How long?
14 years.
Okay.
14 years. So when I came back, I bounced around a couple different jobs and then
Okay.
eventually started working full time at a Protestant church. And so I did marriage retreats from '07 to '08, which is really the first time I'd ever been discipled.
Okay.
There was, at this point in time, I'm 27, right? And there's a guy who pulls me underneath his wing when I show up, and he's like, "Hey, would you like to read the Bible with me?" And I was like, "Well, I've never read the whole Bible at this point in my life." Like, and he's like, "Oh, it'd be great. We could do it. And if you want, you can do it with your wife, and we could all get the exact same Bible." And then, it's like, and so that's what we did. And so it was this incredible gift. And this guy's name is Charles Causey. He's still a dear friend of mine. He's still one of my spiritual fathers and just mentors who I would call at a moment's notice. He's actually the deputy chief of chaplains for the Army now. He's a 1-star general.
Oh, wow.
So he's an anointed leader, one of the best. And him and his wife really took me in while
Mm.
I was with them in that part of they call it a CONUS deployment, which is continental United States. And
Okay.
so I was in the very exotic area of Minneapolis, Minnesota, doing marriage retreats all over the Midwest. Um and man, when I got done with that, I thought, this ministry thing, it might actually have some legs in my life. It might actually
Huh.
work. And I could do it as a civilian, and I could um the whole process, really, that whole season of my life, and I imagine that there's a lot of people listening who wrestle with this, is it was all about just trying to figure out my identity.
Mm.
like who am I? What do I have to do? And for me anyway, I couldn't separate the idea back then that my job was my identity.
Right. It's an easy thing to say, but of course my job's my identity,
Sure.
Tony. Through our 20s, we're told this is who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, just that classic sort of you show up, none of us anymore show up and do what our dads did. I mean, my father chose his career
Hmm.
path standing in line at Votech school, I think, as the story goes.
It's amazing.
And he got up there and computers was closed. The class is full. Whatever computer program, whatever that would have been in 1964, 3, probably early days of IBM is where all that went or something. I don't know. But he was like, well, what do you got? She says, diesel mechanic or HVAC. He's like, what's HVAC? Heating and air conditioning. I'll do that. And all he knew, his girlfriend was pregnant, became my mom.
Yeah.
He had to make $60 a week or whatever it was back then. And that was his identity. He went out and he was in the HVAC industry for 50 years until he retired, provided for his family. I mean, I'm every day we're talking with 18 to 25-year olds, helping. They are wrapped around the axle. Gosh, I mean, and especially the really good ones,
Sure.
the kids that are the best ones. I mean, we call them kids, but they're 23. They are so hung up on what's God want me to do and expectations from parents and peers, and you got to look good in all of the way that we live today. I'd say that identity thing, even though they behave in ways that we believe it's not, because at 5 p.m. they go home and they don't answer our emails, right? We're always coaching people who they've hired a 23-year-old rookie and they don't understand why they don't just respond 24/7 and
Sure.
like we all did, right? But their identity is still in all this stuff. So how do we break out of that? What's the deal? Other than, hang out with you in a group for years, but beyond that,
This is the first thing that I have just come to realize is my ego is the one thing that says that there's one right answer.
for sure.
And so
Yeah.
so that means that um no matter what you call the work that you do, if you call
Hmm.
that your identity, if you call that your job, if you call that
Hmm.
the Lord is big enough to change your path should he choose.
Hmm.
And so the idea of right or wrong
Yeah.
is the temptation to lead us towards I have a right identity or a wrong identity instead of accepting that some of this just is
Yeah.
like hey, like I am still a little bit of a mess, like, and I still wrestle that identity monster inside of
Mm.
me, like it still bubbles up, right?
Right.
I still like,
Yep.
I look at my podcast numbers, for example, and I'm like, dang, why this thing should be bigger than what it is. I'm so good at
I'm
this.
better than this.
Right. Like this, what is
That
happening?
other guy's his pocket, his billion, and I'm way better than him.
I'm way better than that guy, right? And so it's this constant process of like repentance.
Yeah.
It's a constant process
Yeah.
of surrounding myself with people who love me enough
Yeah.
to not let me go down this path of identity
Yeah.
worship.
Listen, what's the hymn? Prone to wonder.
Yeah,
Lord,
yeah.
I feel it.
I
Prone
feel
to
it.
lead the path I love. Prone to lead the path. Here's my
And
heart,
so
take
like
conceal. Yeah.
I think it's this constant idea of like, if left to my own devices, I would surely self-destruct.
Mm,
I resonate so
there's no
deeply with
doubt.
what Paul says is like, we're all sinners of which I'm chief amongst
Chief.
you.
Yeah.
And
I'm the 5-star general
I'm the,
of just sinners.
and so the deal is like, hey, I don't know how to tell you that you're not going to wrestle with your identity.
Yeah.
What I am going to tell you is that God is going to wrestle with you.
Yeah. Sure.
And so whatever you think right or wrong is, I would tell you that God has a much better version of it And the best thing you could do is abandon all abandon all expectation
Yeah.
around what God's going to do with your life. Because if you really are brave enough to just be obedient to him,
Yeah.
and one of my daily prayers is free me for joyful obedience. And if you can be brave enough to just be obedient, he will give you an identity that you never could have imagined in ways that you couldn't even draw up. And just know, like, you are messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are jacked up. Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
wounded. You're broken. And I've seen the same counselor for 10 years. I'm a big proponent of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do the work, get in
Yep.
there. And I started seeing him when I was at that big Protestant megachurch, and I almost ruined my marriage
Mm.
because I was so worried about my identity
Yep.
that I was working hard, and then I didn't think my wife loved me enough, and I didn't think all this, and then next thing you know, I'm talking to this girl that I shouldn't have been talking to.
Right.
And let me just tell you that nobody ever wakes up and says, "Man, today's the day that I want to ruin my life." I've hundreds of counseling hours. Nobody's ever said that.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
today's the day that I want to destroy some
Yeah.
important
Right.
relationships.
Yeah.
But what we stop doing is we stop doing the disciplines that keep us on the road
Sure.
to health,
Sure.
right? And so one of the things I say all the time is that if you aren't dedicated to your disciplines,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be destroyed by your distractions.
Yeah.
And so
Oh,
are your
listen, man, I
disciplines
I majored in it. I grew up in
right?
it. I never read it. I never read the word. I only had guilt for 20 years for not doing it. Let's just be honest.
Yeah.
All that time I spent in ministry, I had the workbooks that I got to page 3 on. The journals made it to January
Mm,
8th, maybe. And I was in my late 40s. And I mean, it's every morning.
yeah.
But it also, the way I got there, for me, it, it started with a different daily discipline, which led to more discipline, which led to sitting down and reading the word. And now it's been 8 years, 7 years now. I know good Dave and I know bad Dave. And
Hmm.
bad Dave has not ridden his bike or had a slow morning sitting in that one chair I have to sit in, this particular chair with the word. It seems so, God, it just seems so simple. We want to make it more complex than that. But it's interesting. You mentioned there's not a big moment when we wake up and decide to, it's this slow erosion over. It's a daily eroding of these things. So the onslaught is daily, little by little.
Yeah.
So the answer seems to be daily, little by little.
Yeah, that's right.
We
One
can go to
degree
the
shift,
mountain.
right?
I can do the 3 days with you and come back and be Superman, or I can do the 40 days to whatever, or I'll see you in 3 or 4 years, man, little by little, over and over again. But everything in our culture just pushes against that, man.
Well, here's the other thing for me is that I'm a big feeler. Like, I have big emotions. Like, I'm like, "Poof." Like, in my marriage, I'm the drama queen, just so we're clear about it, right? Like, it's just my wife is the rock and
Yeah.
I'm the wave. That's the way I kind of describe it. Like, I'm like, ah, let's move to Africa, right?
Yes.
Whatever, right? Like, it's
Live in a
just who I
van?
yeah, anything, right? Like, it's who I am.
Yes.
And I just have big emotions, right? And so I wish I could go back in time to my 18-year-old self and
Yeah.
sit him down and say, "You have big emotions.
Yeah.
Create space to feel them,
Yeah.
but don't make decisions out of them.
Right.
Feelings are decision points, they're not decision makers." Right? In other words, please bring them in the car with you because they're uniquely gifted and they're what make me a passionate storyteller and a
Sure,
pretty
sure.
good, decent communicator and like fun to relate with and hang out with, right? But like,
Yeah.
also, don't let them drive.
Yeah, right.
They're not responsible enough to drive. And so that's one of those things where if I was could do some of that, I think I would have gotten to where I am today quicker and a little less
Yeah.
painfully
Yeah.
had I not let my feelings drive the bus so much. Because I am pretty quick witted. And when I have an emotional reaction, I am likely to say something that
Yeah.
people will laugh at, but I will regret.
Yeah. 20 to 25-year-olds today, they're a little smarter than we were in the 90s. I mean, at least for me. I don't
I
remember
believe it.
personality tests and all of
Yeah,
that. And
yeah, no.
they show up pretty, they at least can give you they may not know why. Like,
Right.
what's your Enneagram? They'll give you the number with the wing. How have you seen that? They'll struggle to tell you stories, maybe, or if they have a favorite one, or so they're pretty well read and they've YouTubed their way. It's not wise, it's savvy, maybe. Is that the word? It's not wisdom yet. It's not
Sure.
tried and tested and been put through it,
They're certainly informed.
but they're informed. And
Very informed.
that's why, well, I mean, it's that has a whole underbelly as well. But I would say in general, that gives me great hope. They're smart. They have the tools at their hands if they want it. I just remember it felt like I was on an island. I just
Yeah.
felt like, I mean, back in the art, the super olden days where you just couldn't hop on another podcast while you were on a treadmill at the gym. I mean, you had to go to a conference once a year and get a printed book. Are you kidding me? So, I mean, I just remember thinking I must be the only person that would quit. I would just quit it all if I could get away with it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, every 32-year-old in a who who's in over his head at work and's got had the kids too soon, whatever, all these things. Yeah, of course, there's probably there's 1,000 Facebook groups and 10 coaches and counselors. You could have them all by 3 p.m. this afternoon. Just click here and sign up. So the tools are there. I have great hope for this generation, but we'll
Same.
see.
I think one of the unique things about this generation is their authenticity, like
Yeah, sure.
how much they're willing to admit that they don't. I was never that authentic. I would lie through my
Of course.
teeth
Of course.
and just be
And then
like,
you get good at it.
right. And honestly, I got rewarded for it.
Yes.
Right. I got rewarded for saying I have no idea. Like, no, no problem. I would just lie. I got it figured out. And I didn't have it figured out. I didn't. I mean, it wasn't. I wish, today we might use a fancy term and call it grit.
Yeah.
Right. But it was, I don't know that if it was grit as much as it was just stupidity. Like, I was like, it'll be fine.
Right.
Like, sure, no problem. I mean, we would like,
Yeah.
it was just, and I just so um, I appreciate the authenticity which they show up and I think vulnerability that is I often see in that age range is a better definition of
For sure.
grit than
For sure.
anything than just to, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do
Yeah.
it. So
And
like
I'll tell you,
that's
where they struggle, our clients struggle,
mm,
is that age group can sniff it. They can sniff it quickly
yeah,
if you're not being authentic and vulnerable with them. And if you can't mentor and you can't coach and you can't be vulnerable, you're not going to manage or lead that generation. They're gonna move on. They're gonna go find it somewhere else.
that's right.
And so the good news is the spiritual awake. Some people calling it a revival, or is it a spiritual awakening? We don't know. Something's going on with 18 to 25. You've got a
Yeah.
ninth grader, you said, so you're living it.
Oh, and I have a 19-year-old.
There you go. Spiritual
Yep.
awakenings going on in this country, and so you've got this spiritual hunger, this thing where they'll verbalize they're looking for a mission. They're looking for a mission to pour themselves into, and they're looking for a mentor who
Yep.
can coach me, mentor me. But the 35 to 55-year-olds over here leading, all the middle managers in church world, they're like, "What? What do you mean? I don't understand. Nobody did this for me. I just jumped. I was pushed in,
Hmm.
and my workaholism and my daddy issues got me there, as you said. You were celebrated and patted on the back,
Yep.
probably for some sinful behavior. And I was too, even inside the church.
Sure.
Just workaholism. And then you hand this person, they're 36 years old, and you hand them a 22-year-old. And now they get to learn how to coach and mentor and sit down and listen, actually listen and ask questions. That's the struggle, man. That's where we are. That's where we are every day in that world. Yeah, so you've done military. Mentioned in passing you did some sales work when you were
Sure.
first starting, which I love. You've been a pastor, you're a teacher, coach, discipler. But I always tell people like people know me as in different periods of my life as different things. But cut me open. What am I? What am I? Vocationally speaking, I mean.
Mhm.
So who are you?
If you cut me open, I am
When I say
a
cut you, I mean like I should have just like when you look at a tree, the
sure.
rings,
Yep.
that's what I think of. Like, oh,
Hmm.
look right here. There was a
If
bad
there was one
disease.
string to pull throughout my entire
Okay,
life,
yeah.
it would be it would be change agent.
Okay.
Like I just the work that seems most in aligned, like when I see God do the most good in my life, it's generally when I'm helping people be transformed.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's like it's movement, right? Like so my core four values are faithful, grateful, generous, and movement. And so that value of movement, the way I picture it, is like a wooded trail where you can't see what's next. And so Matthew 4:19, Jesus says, "Come follow me." He doesn't say where we're going, he doesn't say what we're doing. He just says, "Come follow me." And that's honestly where I feel like I help people the most. It's just like, hey, just let's just try something. Let's just go be
Yeah.
an instigator for change. Let's
Yeah.
let's switch up the way that we do church, or let's change the way we do this, or let's lead troops to here. Let's sell
Yeah.
this. Let's do that. Like
Yeah.
it's just like, let's go, and I love watching God do amazing things in other people's life
Mm-hmm.
and feeling like I got to be a part of God's creative process and that journey. Like it's both rewarding and it seems to work pretty well. That's why I love podcasting, is because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel like there's an opportunity for someone to listen, and you get that light bulb moment, that aha, like, oh man, this might actually work. Like this
Yeah.
could happen. And
Yeah.
that's why I love helping people wrestle with disciplines and disciple making. And it's just, I wanted everything else to work in terms of transformation, something else that was easier. But when it came down to it, I just didn't see many people that were changed on Sunday morning or
Yeah.
in a small group.
Yeah.
But if we sit down, twice a month or three times a month for a couple of years, there's no way you're not getting out of there changed. And there's no way
Right.
I'm not getting out of there changed
Right.
either.
That's
Right?
right.
Like it's a both and. It's
It
not like
is.
I'm not saying like I have the answers to all the change. I'm just saying like, man, one on one, one on two, intentional, relational, reproducible. We're
Mm-hmm.
both coming out of here as a different follower of Jesus, one that I think might look a little bit more like him.
What are you working on or learning right now that's got you excited?
I I have a book coming out this month
Okay.
that God put on my heart 5 years ago. Like,
Okay.
and it's all about brokenness in the world.
Okay.
And so the epistemic consequence of sin is the idea that
What was that word?
epistemic
Epis.
epistemic consequence of sin. So let me just break it down, right? Epicenter, stemic,
Oh,
systematic,
got it.
right?
Okay.
Consequence, right? Like uh and basically your face, by the way, is so good right now.
That's good. No, that's great. Epistemic.
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 So in other words, we're all willing to admit the world is broken.
Yeah.
And I haven't met anyone who's not willing to say that there's always a consequence for sin.
Mm-hmm.
So then it begs the question, what is the consequence of the brokenness of the world? In other words, if the world is inherently broken, aka sinful,
Mm-hmm.
that must mean that there's a consequence for that sin.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really believe and what I've learned is that the idea of little t trauma, so trauma that's not malicious in intent,
Yep.
trauma that typically happens between the ages of 4 and 12,
Yep.
is that consequence in the world.
Mm.
And all of us have it. Like I haven't met
Yeah.
anyone who
Right.
doesn't have it.
Right.
And so that is kind of the word that I use is wound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the idea that in this process there's just a brokenness in the world, and that brokenness exists inside of all of us, and that wound is a lens. But on the other side of that wound is your greatest gift.
Mm-hmm.
And so the wisest leaders in the world, the ones who I'm learning more and more that I want to be like,
Mm-hmm.
they don't have an absence of that wounding, but rather they have an intimacy with it. So they're so familiar with the edges of their wound that it doesn't scare them anymore when somebody bumps up against it. And so that book is, the Lord put that on my heart like in 2020. And I tried to make that a book about COVID, and nobody wanted to talk about it, and it was terrible, and it needed some maturing. And so the Lord did some refining, and I went back and
Yeah.
cursed a little bit at the writing process.
Mm-hmm.
And then this month, Wisdom in the Wound comes out. It's all about
Wisdom.
how God uses your past to shape who you're becoming. And it's
Yeah.
the challenge for so many of us to get to know the edges of who we are as humans. Um, like the deep stuff. Like, for example, mine, when I was 4 years old, my parents had unplanned twins.
Hmm.
So I went from being the youngest to the middle. And just like that, my narrative was, I don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And people, I don't feel seen. And that was a narrative that I held for a really long time. And so some of that identity stuff is wrapped up in that too. And it's like a double whammy.
Mm.
But now what I've learned is, because of how good God is, that my unique gift is that I have a really unique ability at seeing people. And I just really believe that the more we get in touch with that wounding side, the more we'll get to see God work in our gifting side.
That's great. How do we find this book?
You can go to wisdominthewoundbook.com,
Okay.
wisdominthewoundbook.com, and we're giving away the introduction, who was written by a great writer named Kristen LaValle, and we're also giving away the first chapter. So there's some goodies there that we,
Yeah.
love to get in the hands of all your people. And it's
Yeah.
also available for pre-order on Amazon or wherever you get
Right
your
on.
books at. So,
And then we can find you. Where's the best which website? What's the best way to find you and what you're doing?
so honestly, I would say, follow the number 2 leadcoaching.com is probably my best website. I have a website problem. I just keep buying URLs and putting up websites, and I've had twmilt.com for
Yes.
so long. Like,
Yeah, we
it's
know.
like I've had it since it was a blog
Yes.
back in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
but I don't know what to do with it now.
Right.
And so it just kind of all lives in an ecosystem. It's all out there.
Well, it's interesting to me, the guy that was the chaplain 25 years later, 25 years later, is writing the book about understanding that stuff,
Yeah.
understanding the wounds and the Army Chaplain winds up writing a book about trauma and the wound and the woundedness. That's interesting, isn't it?
It's yeah, there's probably
There's
something
a
there.
through line, is what
There's
we
a
would
through
say.
line for sure. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Sometime when your story is on HBO, they'll be flashing back in season 4 to season 1, where it all began, and that's why I love that. I love that origin stuff.
Uh,
What's
it's
going
good,
on?
man. Like, it's a game changer for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. All right, Tony. Thank you for your time. It's great to meet. I think I made a friend today.
Hey, anytime that you're in the great state of Ohio, let me know. Love to connect and hang out. And I think I'm excited. I get to interview one of your people here coming up real soon.
Absolutely. You just hold on. The co-founder, the other co-founder.
The
I can hear
other.
her. I can hear her coaching someone down that hall right there.
Also, I listen, I told my lead pastor about this organization, and we're really interested in talking
Heck
to you as
yeah,
a
man.
possible client.
Heck
So,
yeah. I think we just turned 9, and I bet 5 years ago I'd be like, yeah, you ought to think about these days. I'm like, every church in America, it may not be residency, whatever, but every staff leader at your church, they ought to look at their team and go, who could do my job in 2 years?
that's right.
And if we could start something like that in every church. We work with the big, awesome, churches of 30,000, but churches of 2 and 300, they do as good a job as anybody in understanding, because it's very apparent when at the church of 2 or 300, when the youth guy quits or the worship guy is called on to something else, which means the mega church in Cincinnati, or
Sure.
whatever.
Sure. You know
It's
them.
very apparent. And it's very painful to go through those things
Yeah.
without leaders. So that's what we're trying to do every day. But I appreciate you and the work you're doing. It makes me want to dig in. I wrote down the title of that book. I'll be checking that out. Tony Middleburger,
Miltenberger. You had it right the first time.
Miltenberger.
It's good. One
God
out of two is not bad. It's
dang.
so good.
And
It's
I
all
don't
right.
edit, man.
It's fine.
I'm not
Just
editing.
I like it kind of raw,
Raw.
rough,
Authentic, we would call it. Authentically rough.
imperfect.
There you go. Thanks
Imperfect.
for the time. I appreciate it.
Hey, brother, appreciate you.
All right. Take care.